When we talk about empowerment, the very first thing I want you to understand is this. True strength does not come from intimidating others, nor does it come from having a loud voice or making sure people notice you. It comes from something far deeper. It comes from knowing yourself, owning who you are, and embracing the unique gifts that only you bring into this world. Every one of us has a story, experiences, struggles, and victories that shape us. And it is in recognizing those, in acknowledging them fully, that we begin to stand tall, not in arrogance, but in confidence, because you cannot be intimidated by someone else when you are fully rooted in your own value. Think about it for a moment. How often do we allow fear to creep in simply because we doubt ourselves? We see someone else succeed, we see someone else's confidence, their accomplishments, and we begin to question our own worth. But here's the truth: your journey, your capabilities, your potential, they are not diminished by anyone else's light. Empowerment starts the moment you stop comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. It starts when you look at yourself honestly, without judgment, and say, I am capable, I am worthy, I have something unique to offer. And owning your power does not mean you become rigid or inflexible. It doesn't mean you dismiss feedback or ignore the world around you. No, it means you have a foundation so strong that criticism, doubt, and even failure no longer shake you to your core. It means that when you walk into a room, you carry yourself with quiet confidence, not because you need to prove anything to anyone, but because you know who you are and what you stand for. People can feel that. Others may try to intimidate you, but if your foundation is solid, intimidation has no grip on your mind or heart. Now, I want you to think about the small moments in your daily life, moments where you hesitate, where you second guess, where you let someone else's opinion weigh more heavily than your own judgment. Those are the moments that shape the way fear grows, and the antidote to that fear is simple, but it requires practice. Recognize it, acknowledge it, and then choose to act despite it. Start by identifying one area of your life where you've allowed yourself to feel small or powerless. Maybe it's speaking up at work, standing firm in a relationship, or pursuing a dream you've held back from. And then take one deliberate step. No matter how small, that step is you reclaiming your power. Each time you do it, you send a message, not to the world, but to yourself, that you are capable, that you are strong, that you will not be intimidated. And let's remember, owning your power is not a destination. It's a continuous journey. Every day presents new challenges, new doubts, and new situations that test your confidence. But the more you anchor yourself in your worth, the more resilient you become. You begin to understand that empowerment is not something someone gives you. It is something you claim for yourself. It is an inner declaration. I am not here to shrink. I am not here to bow down to fear. I am here to rise, to act, and to shine with integrity and purpose. So, recognize your strength, embrace your story, and let your confidence grow from the inside out. Stand firm in the knowledge that your power is yours, and no one can take it from you. Because when you own your power, intimidation has no place in your life. Fear is one of the most powerful forces in our lives, and yet it is often completely misunderstood. We treat fear like an enemy to avoid at all costs, a shadow that must be banished before we can move forward. But the truth is, fear is not a sign of weakness. It is a natural part of being alive, a signal that something matters deeply to us. The question is not whether we will feel fear, because we will over and over again. The question is how we respond when it comes. Do we let it paralyze us, or do we let it guide us to action? I want you to think about the moments in your life where you felt intimidated or unsure. Maybe it was stepping into a new role, speaking in front of people, or pursuing a dream that seemed out of reach. That tightness in your chest, that racing in your mind, that hesitation. It is fear, and it is here that most people make a critical mistake. They wait until they feel ready, but the truth is, readiness rarely comes before action. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is moving forward in spite of fear. It is deciding that what you want, what you are called to do, matters more than the temporary discomfort of uncertainty. The most powerful way to confront fear is through deliberate action. This doesn't mean taking reckless leaps, but rather taking small, consistent steps toward what intimidates you. When fear rises, name it. Acknowledge it, speak to yourself with honesty. Yes, I am afraid. Yes, this is difficult, but I will move forward anyway. By doing this, you break the hold that fear has over you. Action transforms fear from a wall into a doorway. Each step, no matter how small, chips away at the power fear has over your mind. And let's be honest, fear thrives in isolation. It grows when we overthink, when we dwell on what could go wrong, when we imagine the worst case scenario repeatedly. But action disrupts that cycle. When you move, when you engage, when you do something concrete, even if it's just a single small task, you regain control. You shift from being a passive observer in your own life to being an active participant. This is how empowerment begins to grow, not in moments of perfect clarity, but in moments of deliberate, imperfect action. Another thing to remember is that fear often exaggerates reality. The intimidating challenge before you usually feels larger in your mind than it is in reality. But once you take the first step, you realize the situation is manageable. You realize that the power to navigate it lies within you. Action shrinks the imagined threat because it replaces speculation with experience. You learn, you adapt, and you gain confidence not from avoiding fear, but from facing it head on. This doesn't mean fear disappears entirely. It will appear in different forms in different stages of your life. But here is the key. The more you act in spite of fear, the less intimidating life becomes. You build resilience, muscle memory for courage, and a sense of inner authority that no external pressure can undermine. You discover that fear is not a barrier. It is a signal pointing toward growth, toward opportunity, toward the life you are meant to lead. So I want you to embrace this reality. Fear is not your enemy. It is a teacher, a challenge, and a call to action. The moment you stop waiting for it to vanish and instead step forward despite it, you claim your power. You move from hesitation to momentum, from doubt to clarity, from intimidation to empowerment. And in that moment, fear no longer controls you. One of the most overlooked aspects of empowerment is the ability to set boundaries, and not just set them, but to do so with clarity, confidence, and conviction. Too often, people confuse empowerment with being agreeable or accommodating. They think that to be strong, they must always say yes, to always meet expectations, to always bend under pressure. But the truth is the exact opposite. True empowerment is knowing when to say yes and equally when to say no. It is understanding that your energy, your focus, and your time are precious resources, and they deserve protection. Many of us have experienced moments where we felt overwhelmed because we said yes to everything. Maybe it was taking on extra responsibilities at work, agreeing to commitments we didn't truly want, or staying in relationships and situations that drained us. At first, it might feel easier to go along to avoid conflict to keep the peace. But over time, this pattern erodes our sense of self. We lose sight of our priorities, we stretch ourselves too thin, and we become more reactive than proactive in life. Boundaries are the remedy to this, but setting them requires courage because it often means standing against expectations, against pressure, and sometimes even against those we care about. Setting boundaries is not about pushing people away. It is about creating space for yourself to thrive. It is about honoring your values, your limits, and your well-being. When you know what you will accept and what you will not, you take control of your life instead of allowing others to dictate it for you. This is where confidence comes in. Confidence is the engine that allows you to enforce boundaries consistently. It is the inner voice that says, I am worthy of respect. My time matters. My energy matters. Without this confidence, boundaries become suggestions, easily overridden by external pressure, and ultimately ineffective. And here's something important to understand. Boundaries are not selfish. They are a form of respect and a model for others on how to treat you. When you communicate your limits clearly and respectfully, you teach those around you that your time, your values, and your well-being are important. This doesn't mean everyone will agree with you, and yes, there may be pushback. But pushback is not a reason to abandon your boundaries. On the contrary, it is an opportunity to reinforce them and to show that your empowerment is not negotiable. Setting boundaries also frees up space for growth. When you stop overcommitting and start saying no to what does not serve your purpose, you create energy for what truly matters. You gain the mental clarity to pursue your goals, the emotional bandwidth to nurture meaningful relationships, and the freedom to live in alignment with your principles. Boundaries are the scaffolding of empowerment. They support your growth while protecting you from unnecessary erosion. Remember, the ability to set boundaries is a skill, and like any skill, it improves with practice. Start small. Identify one area of your life where you feel stretched too thin, where you've allowed yourself to be taken for granted or pushed past your limits. Practice asserting your needs with clarity and respect. Each time you do this, your confidence grows and your empowerment becomes more visible, not just to yourself, but to the world around you. Empowered people are not those who never say no. They are those who know their worth, honor their limits, and navigate life with intentionality. When you set boundaries with confidence, you no longer bend to intimidation. You no longer carry the weight of others' expectations as your own. And you no longer sacrifice your own growth for temporary comfort. Because when you stand firm in your boundaries, your life becomes yours to lead. Life has a way of testing us. No matter how prepared we think we are, challenges will come, and sometimes they appear suddenly, shaking everything we thought we had under control. The question is not whether challenges will happen. They will, but how we respond to them. Do we see them as insurmountable obstacles, as reasons to shrink back, as moments of intimidation that define us? Or do we see them differently, as opportunities, as lessons, as doors to growth that only open when we dare to step through? Most people view difficulty as a signal to stop. They feel overwhelmed and they allow setbacks to dictate their next move. But empowerment works in the opposite way. Empowerment is about taking what seems like a roadblock and transforming it into a stepping stone. It is about adopting a mindset that no challenge is ever purely negative. Every struggle contains within it the seeds of growth, if only we are willing to look for them. Think for a moment about a time in your own life when things did not go as planned. Maybe a relationship ended, a project failed, or an opportunity slipped through your fingers. Initially, it may have felt devastating. You may have asked yourself, why me, why now? But if you reflect honestly, you may realize that the difficulty forced you to reassess, to learn, or to pivot in a way that ultimately brought greater clarity, resilience, or direction. This is the essence of transforming challenges into opportunities. It is the ability to see the hidden potential in what feels like a setback. To do this, you must cultivate perspective. You must step back and ask not only what went wrong, but also, what can I learn? How can this experience make me stronger, wiser, or more prepared for the next step? Challenges often carry with them truths we cannot see in moments of comfort. They expose weaknesses, reveal blind spots, and push us out of complacency. And while this process may be uncomfortable, it is necessary. Growth is rarely found in ease. It is found in discomfort, in perseverance, and in the courage to confront what we would rather avoid. Another key part of this transformation is taking responsibility. It is easy to blame circumstances, other people, or sheer bad luck when life does not go our way. But empowerment comes when we recognize that no matter what happens, we have the power to respond. We may not control every event, but we control how we act, how we adapt, and how we move forward. By claiming responsibility for our choices, Even in difficult situations, we reclaim agency. We shift from feeling like victims of circumstance to becoming architects of our own future. And finally, remember that challenges are often invitations to discover our true capacity. Every time we face difficulty and rise above it, we expand our limits. We gain confidence, resilience, and insight that can never be taken from us. Over time, the very experiences that once intimidated us become sources of strength, reminders that we have endured, learned, and grown. So, when life presents obstacles, I urge you to change the lens through which you view them. Stop seeing challenges as threats to your power and start seeing them as opportunities to strengthen it. Ask yourself what this situation can teach you, how it can prepare you, and how it can push you closer to the person you are meant to become. The road may be difficult and the climb may feel steep, but every step upward transforms fear and frustration into growth and empowerment. Because the moment we learn to turn every challenge into an opportunity, life no longer intimidates us, it strengthens us. One of the most powerful, yet often underestimated, ways to remain empowered and unshaken by life is the company we keep. The people around us shape our mindset, our confidence, and even the trajectory of our lives. It is said that we become the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with, and this is not an exaggeration. Every conversation we have, every interaction we engage in, leaves a subtle mark on our thoughts, our emotions, and our beliefs about what is possible. If we surround ourselves with those who elevate, encourage, and inspire, we begin to see life through the lens of possibility. If we surround ourselves with negativity, doubt, or intimidation, we slowly absorb that as well. We all have experienced the opposite, being around someone who doubts you, belittles your efforts, or thrives on fear. At first, it may seem manageable, but over time, even the strongest among us begin to feel their confidence eroded. Empowerment cannot thrive in such an environment. That is why surrounding yourself with positive influence is not optional. It is essential. It is the ecosystem that nurtures your growth, protects your self-belief, and reinforces the message that you are capable of rising above intimidation. Positive influence doesn't mean people who agree with you all the time or who never challenge you. True positive influence challenges you in the right ways. It encourages you to grow, to think critically, and to step out of your comfort zone. It is the mentor who pushes you to take responsibility, the friend who celebrates your victories genuinely, the colleague who inspires excellence without ego. These are the people who remind you of your worth when doubt creeps in, who hold you accountable when distraction arises, and who model resilience and integrity in ways that quietly shape your own behavior. At the same time, this is also a call to courage. Surrounding yourself with positive influence sometimes requires difficult choices. It may mean stepping back from relationships that are toxic, draining, or limiting. It may mean distancing yourself from environments where criticism overshadows encouragement, where fear and intimidation dominate rather than inspiration. Letting go is not easy. Human nature often gravitates toward familiarity, even if it is harmful. But empowerment demands intentionality. To thrive, you must be intentional about the energy you allow into your life. It also means actively seeking out those who can lift you higher. Attend spaces that challenge your thinking, that inspire creativity and growth. Build connections with people whose values align with yours and whose character strengthens yours. Surround yourself with voices that remind you of what is possible, that encourage you to rise rather than shrink, that inspire action rather than hesitation. These influences act as both mirrors and guides, reflecting the best version of yourself while showing you the path to become even stronger. And remember, influence is reciprocal. As you nurture these relationships, you also become a source of positive influence for others. Empowered people don't just absorb encouragement, they radiate it. Your confidence, your resilience, your ability to act despite fear, and your steadfastness in boundaries and growth inspire those around you. By cultivating an environment of mutual empowerment, you create a ripple effect that strengthens not only your own journey but the journeys of everyone you touch. Life is full of forces that can intimidate, discourage, or distract. But when you intentionally surround yourself with positive influence, those forces lose their power. You gain a community that reminds you of your strength, your purpose, and your potential, and in doing so, you reinforce your own ability to remain empowered no matter the circumstances. Because when your circle uplifts you, life becomes a place where encouragement outweighs intimidation, and inspiration outweighs fear. Empowerment is not just a personal journey, it is a force that grows when shared. It is not enough to stand strong, to overcome fear, to set boundaries, and to transform challenges if those lessons stop with us. True empowerment reaches its highest form when it inspires others to rise alongside us. Leading with action is the key. It is not the words we speak, though words matter, nor the intentions we hold silently in our hearts. It is the steps we take, the choices we make, and the example we set that ripple through the lives of those around us. When we act decisively, with courage and integrity, we send a message far more powerful than any argument or speech could convey. This is how a life of empowerment looks. Think about it. People are inspired less by promises than by proof. They are motivated not by plans that never leave the page, but by actions that are visible, tangible, and relentless. When someone sees you move through fear, when they watch you stand firm in your boundaries, when they witness you turn challenges into opportunities, they are learning what is possible for themselves. Leadership through action is contagious. Your courage gives permission for others to act courageously. Your resilience gives permission for others to persist. Your clarity of purpose gives permission for others to define and pursue their own. But leading with action is not always easy. It requires humility because the act of leading does not mean doing everything perfectly or never struggling. In fact, the most inspiring leaders are often those who fail, who stumble, and who get back up. People connect with authenticity. They see the humanity in your journey, and it reminds them that their own journey, with all its challenges, is valid and conquerable. To inspire others, you must first embrace your own vulnerability and imperfection, knowing that courage is not the absence of difficulty, but the decision to move forward in spite of it. Leading with action also requires consistency. Small, repeated acts of courage, integrity, and discipline accumulate into a life that naturally commands respect and influence. It is not about dramatic gestures that last for a moment and are forgotten. It is about showing up every day, making deliberate choices, staying committed to your values, and embodying the principles you teach. This consistent alignment between belief and behavior is what builds trust, credibility, and inspiration in the lives of others. Another aspect of this leadership is encouragement. Empowered people lift others as they rise. Leadership is not a zero-sum game. When you take action, when you show what is possible, do so in a way that invites others in, that highlights their potential as well. A true leader celebrates the success of others, guides them through their own challenges, and models the path to empowerment without claiming superiority. This is the ripple effect of action. Your courage sparks courage in someone else, and theirs in another, creating a chain of empowerment that extends far beyond what any single individual could achieve. Ultimately, the call to lead with action is a call to responsibility. You are responsible for your own life, but the impact you can have on others is also in your hands. Every decision you make, every risk you take, every moment you stand firm against intimidation sends a signal. Empowerment is possible. Fear does not have to dominate. Boundaries can be set. Challenges can be transformed. And every one of us can rise and help others rise along the way. Because when you lead with action and inspire others, empowerment becomes a movement, not just an individual achievement.